Hi, I will show you the breakdown of how this hairstyle was made. So this was created from two layers. The green one is adding most of the density, and then we have the red one, which is kinda giving the overall shape to the punk hairstyle. Okay, so let's do the breakdown of the first layer. We start with the strand generator, which is kinda growing the hair from this strip of geometry. In here we just bump density. I do not think it matters that we have those vertex groups. I could remove that. Then after that we are gluing those hair tips to this guide curve with the track to curve deformer. So you see when I move now the guide curve, the hair tips are glued to this. After that I am tapering the hair strands with radius deformer. Then I am adding a bit of flow with the noise deformer. So with. Then I move the hair strands slightly closer to the border. So the idea is that if we have hair strand placed in here, and it will search for closest border on the edge, so in here, and then it will move the strand closer to this border edge. I don't think it matters too much in this case, but this allows me to get kind of like more density on the sides. And after that I use align tilt to mesh border. So we are again aligning hair strands to the same mesh. So that is the red system. After that I added the green one, which is mostly here for adding the final look to the hair strands. Now the second hair system type is set to filter, which means it is basically not generating any new strands, but it allows me to affect existing strands. So for example, in this case, I duplicated the existing strands, meaning those visible and created in the red hair system. So in here I am duplicating the visible strands. It's kind of hard to see what is going on because the value of the radius of distribution is too big. If I set this to something smaller, you see we are generating 11 strands now for each individual strand in here. Now, why the radius was so big? I will explain this in a second. So after duplicating those strands, we use clamp deformer. And now you see those clamps are a bit narrow, so that is why in the duplicate I would want to increase the radius of duplication. So thanks to that we get this kind of clamp effect. And okay, so after clamps I wanted to move hair roots back to the scalp mesh because they are kind of the hair roots are past the border of the scalp, so that's why I have this attached to surface, which is kinda moving the hair roots back to the surface from which they grew from. After that we get a bit of uniform look, so I broke this with a bit of noise. Then I use align to mesh border, just like in the first layer. Then I wanted to increase length slightly with the lengthen deformer. After that, I noticed that we got kind of this low poly look to hair strands. So I wanted to subdivide those points, but instead of subdividing everything, which will increase poly count quite a lot, I use subdivide at angle. This means it will subdivide only the most bent part of the strands. There is also UV region distribute, where I manually picked UV region number 1 and 2. So if I show you, number 1 and 2 are those two UV regions. If I picked number 0, this is now too thick. Number 3 is too thin. So that's why number 1 and 2, they look the best. After that I tapered the strands a bit more, and use system color to colorize the hair strands. And in here I just wanted mostly to get this transition from red to yellow, and also I darkened the roots. Now let's recreate something similar from scratch on this character. I will go to library subcomponents. In here load the sculpt preset. Move this closer to your character head. And in my case I will want to set origin to bounding box bottom, scale this down. And now I will want to snap this to the character head. And on the sculpt you will see the shrink wrap. As target I will pick the character. Let's see it works. If it works okay, then you can just apply this. And now I will want to go to edit mode and duplicate this kind of strip for strand generation. So I will duplicate P for split, and so that I will remove selection ability from the original sculpt. So when I click here, it will only select this new sculpt mesh. Let's call this strip. Okay, now in edit mode, I will clean this up slightly. Scale things, and smooth things out. Now I will want to generate strands. So let's do this the similar way to the left. I will use strand generator, but in this case actually use version strand from UV pattern. To explain how it works, I will open the UV image editor, and if I go to edit mode, we cannot see the UVs. It is Blender kinda making it hard. So if you have some modifiers on the mesh, then UVs cannot be previewed. To fix that, I will use Ctrl-Shift-H, and I will transfer hair system modifiers to empty curve object. You see now in the outliner the hair system is now split from the sculpt strip. And if I go to edit mode for the strip mesh, you can see now the UVs. I will unwrap this like so. And the idea with this method is that we are generating a bunch of points in the UV image editor, and then those points that fall on the UV strip will be then converted into strands. The advantage of this method is that we get very uniform distribution. Now let's say I will maybe want effect of tinier and smaller strips of geometry on the bottom of the sculpt. I can do that by just moving with soft selection, moving the UVs. But actually, you see now we get less strands on the bottom. So I want to move the other side. And with big fall off, move this. Okay, my bad, actually. This is okay. We are now getting, let's see, switch this to linear mode. And not good. So, okay, let's go with the sharp. Now it should work the way I wanted. Okay, so now in this mode, I am kind of squishing this part, so it covers less points. Since it is smaller, it covers a smaller region, and a smaller amount of points will be generated. So now it is kind of denser in this area. I can maybe bump up density in this hair system we just created. In here, let's bump this up to maybe like 15. It looks okay. And you see now we have more strands in the bottom. Those will be converted kind of to clumps. So we get tinier clumps in here and then few bigger clumps in the front. Okay, so this looks kind of decent. Now I will pick the UV region distribute. So in here I will manually set UV regions. just left click on any UV region you want to use and assign to texture to the hair cards. Or if shift click is used, then you can pick multiple ones. So we'll pick number 1 and 2, enter to accept. And now we want to create this guide curve. You could go to Scalp Mesh, Shift A, add curve, empty strand, and then manually add curve. But we can, with the same scalp selected, use hair drawing, so enable that. And from the side view, I will draw stroke kinda around the head, like that. Now you see from the front, this was not touched in the place of the scalp, because I had to use origin of the world. Maybe I could make this in the future, so it will use origin of the object. But in the meantime, you have to manually move this around. Now, if I grab this like so, you see only hair ending is moving. It is because when we enable hair drawing, hair tool automatically switch active tool to hair modeling, and when hair modeling is enabled, grab tool will behave kinda like this one, like this snake. So I will disable this modeling tool, switch to something else. Now when I move this around, it will work the usual normal way. Now I do not want this origin to be in here, so I will copy origin from the scalp mesh. And I will paste this on this object. Now, before we can use this as target for the hair tips and glue hair tips to this curve object, we have to fix one thing. Currently, this curve has profile, meaning it will be seen as by other objects. It will be seen as mesh. We can just remove profile to fix this issue. Now this will be seen as curve, and I know actually I will want to also remove default hair material, so it won't be useful on the curve anyway. Now we can go back to the hair system and add the former in the track 2. There is track 2 curve. This will basically allow to glue hair tips to the guide we just created. So on the target, we'll pick this curve. And now you see only one side is glued. What is happening? Well, by default, there is option to use separate target, curve target per each island. If I remove it, all the strands will follow the same curve. This is happening because the scalp mesh is kinda split into 2 mesh islands with this sharp edge. So another way around that would be to just clear this sharp edge and remove edge split modifier from the strip mesh. This way it will be treated as one mesh island, and all the strands generated from it will follow the same guide. Now let's maybe see how this works currently. Let's say I will move this guide. You see the hair strands are kind of jumping around in big steps. It is because in the track deformer there is this sample count set to 12, meaning we kind of are picking like 12 points on the curve, and only those points will be used for snapping. It can be used for cornrows, it can be useful for cornrows, but currently we don't need that, so we can like bump this up to high value. So now it should look smoother. The jumps are way smaller. Another issue is that when I move this guide, you see the head tips are not glued. Like this part is not glued to this part. The way to fix this is to bind and press this button. This will kind of like glue hair tips to the curve. So when you find like sometimes you have to tweak the curve. For example, if the curve was drafted like that, I do not like to bind and glue hair endings to this spot. I would like to bind this hair strand to this spot. So that's why sometimes you have to like manually move those points around. And when you like this point, how it is snapped, and maybe I will move this point in here. And when I find the distribution that looks cool, like maybe if this is too wide, you see we have big gap, so I would have to like move this closer maybe. And another way to kind of smooth everything out would be to go to Ctrl-Shift-H, resample strand, and set uniform spacing. So anyway, when you finally tweak your mesh, and the idea with this tweaking is that each hair strand root, so let's say this hair strand root is searching for closest point on the guide. So that's why if I move this strand like so, the closest point from this strand will be in here. It won't be definitely in here. This is way bigger distance. So the closest point for this strand is here. For this strand, closest point to the guide is here. So that's why this is how it works. So you can kind of move. So when I move this point closer to this position, now you see this point, this strand has closest point to this point. So now this is good, good kind of position of the guide at which I would press bind to glue the hair tips. When I move now the guide, you see the hair tips are glued. If I move it like so, you see it no longer moves around. At least it doesn't slide around. It is following the curve, the guide curve correctly. So I will now modify slightly the hair look like that, and that's it. In theory, you could make this maybe simpler by just dragging few guides and groom them, but I wanted to show you some other modeling techniques. Okay, we have some guides, we have track to mesh, maybe let's add some flow with the noise deformer. If noise is too big, the first parameter to tweak is the global size. I know for realistic size of head, global size of 0.1 will be okay. I will disable the per strand noise, set the amplitude to 0, and I am only interested in the uniform amplitude, which will give kind of a uniform flow and make this kind of flowy like so. Maybe the frequency is a bit high, so I will reduce the frequency. And also, let's see, on the back I think the noise is too strong. So I will mask the amplitude with the length mask. So this way the shortest strands get like 0 effect. If I preview this mask, you see the black strands are receiving 0 amplitude, then they are receiving like 50%, and longest strands receive like 100% of amplitude. So maybe for the shorter strands I will increase this slightly, like to 10-12%. And let's say I will also do not want to start the noise too soon. Mostly I will want those strands to be straight and then get them flowing. To tweak that, I would have to adjust influence range. If I visualize that, you see the black parts are not affected by the noise. So I want to expand the black parts. I will increase the influence range, and you already see that the first segment is straighter now. So let's say it looks good enough. If you want, you may maybe want to go to strand generator and add one more subdivision step to get more points assigned to each strand. That is looking kinda okay. Let's add radius set to taper the strands. The way it works, we are assigning radius of 1. I could set this to radius of 2. Usually it is a good idea to keep this close to 1. And taper is happening because of this influence range. So if I visualize this again, you see we have white parts receive radius mask 0 1.0, and in here we receive mask value of 0, 0, so small. It results in radius of 0, meaning we get basically this taper. Okay, and maybe after that I can go to tilt, align tilt to mesh border. And now let's maybe go to the profile settings. I think we do not need this bump in the center. So for the profile, I will reduce profile resolution. So now this is straight, but we still have too many subdivisions in this area. So I will reduce resolution in here, and now we have less points. This will result in a lower poly count. Okay, so we have kinda nice looking high strands. Now I will want to add a second hair system. So let's make this maybe red. So in future I can call this red hair system, and let's add new one. Now instead of generating new strands, I will add hair system called strand filter. The way it works, this is useful. For example, let's say you have a few hair systems added, like maybe one more strand generator, one more, and you want maybe to adjust length and scale those strands. You could do this by adding 4 times the scale deformer, but instead, after all those hair systems, you can add strand filter and add scale in here. So this will affect all the previously generated strands. You do not have to add scale deformer 5 times or 4 times. Okay, so in this case I do not need actually those hair systems. And let's say this will be green. I do not need the scale. And here region distribute is useful, so I can pick those boxes, number 1, shift click, number 2, enter to accept. Then I will want to duplicate those strands a bunch of times. In the deformers, there is generator, duplicate strands. And by default, it will duplicate this 10 times, which is kind of okay. If I reduce radius, you see each strand is duplicated 10 times. I will bump up the radius like that. And actually, I do not want this radius to be so big on the back. So I will mask radius with the length mask. So now the shorter strands get a radius of distribution of duplication set to 0. So maybe let's bump this up slightly. And I guess it's okay. Later we can tweak that. Now I will add clamps. And again, just like previously, it is mostly affected with this influence range mask, meaning white parts will receive 100% of clamping, black parts receive 0. If I change this influence range, you see it is affecting how the clamps look like. I could also tweak and switch this influence range to maybe like root center tip. So this way I can set tip clamp to 100%, root to 100, center to 0. You would get this kind of effect. But in this case, I want maybe something like this. I could go to the duplicate strands and increase radius a bit more. Okay, so we get this kind of look. Now let's glue the hair roots back to the strip mesh. So after clamps, in the move strands category, there is attached to the surface. You see now those roots were moved to the strip mesh from which they grew from. Another step would be to break the uniform look. So let's add noise. This time maybe I will actually disable uniform noise to 0, reduce global scale first, And I'm not interested in uniform noise this time, since I added uniform noise to the red guides previously. I will just tweak the per strand amplitude. And maybe let's bump frequency. Just like previously, I will change the influence range so that the base of the hair roots is not affected that much. So I want to make this kinda darker, the first half. This looks kinda okay. Again, I will reduce the noise amplitude with the length mask on the back. And let's make this like that 30% of the back for the shorter strands. That is almost everything. If I remember correctly, I added a bit of length. So add lengthen. And then we get those straight segments visible. So instead of subdividing all the strands, so in the strand filter, I could enable resample, then bump this up, but this would add more points everywhere. So instead, I will go to the resample, and there is subdivide at angle. And let's reduce the subdivision threshold, so it will be subdividing even straighter segments, and you see now this is smooth, so without width. And the angle threshold, how it works is basically, let's say you have segments like that with very high threshold, only like this sharp corner would be subdivided. But if I reduce this angle threshold, then it will affect even a straighter segment like this one. And after that, I think that is almost everything. We can use align tilt. So in the tilt, align to mesh border. Looks okay. And influence range in this case is set to uniform 100% value. I do not want to set influence range to some gradient where it would twist on the root, and do not twist the endings. I want to twist everything. And the last deformer in the list would be to add colors. So in the deformer color, set system color. If I set this to yellow, you see it is just adding yellow color on top of the base color. When it is black, it is adding black, so we do not see any effect. So in my case, on the left, I want to set up like on the left where it goes from red to the yellow. So I will have to switch to hue saturation value. By default, hue 0 is giving red. If I change this to 0.1, it's kind of yellow. Then at 50%, it is blue, etc. Now I will want to make this kind of like yellowish with 0.1. And then I want to mask this hue with the influence range. It will be easier to explain maybe with the root to tip. So now we have tip value of 0, meaning on the endings we have 0 mask, and here we have mask value of 1. If we get hue 0.1, so it is multiplied, 0 mask is multiplied by hue 0.1, this results in value of 0, because 0 times any hue will result in 0, and 0, if you remember, I just showed you that the 0 gives red color. And in here we have a mask value of 1, which is multiplied by hue 0.1. So this results in 0.1, which is kinda like yellow. In my case, I would like to actually invert that. And we kinda get what we wanted, except there is no control. We can only set root value, tip value. But in my case, I would actually want to switch to influence simple, because in this case it goes from 0 to white, but I can change the blending factor like so. And that looks okay. Now I want to make roots darker, so with the value slider I can mask this again with simple influence range. And if I remember correctly, I also randomized values on the left. So on top of that, I could add randomize, reduce amplitude, and that's it. This is the whole setup. Now, it may be a bit convoluted with this guide curve setup, but the advantage is that you can move now this curve. So I can move this like that, or I could move this from the root. And it is kind of non-destructive in this way. Another way to do this would be to maybe manually create few guides. So I could enable hair drawing, then add few guides manually, and then on top of that I could add strand generator maybe. So select this, make this shorter. Let's draw strands overlays. So on top of that, we could add hair system generator, bump up density, and you could work this way also. You could argue that it is actually kind of easier maybe to set up, but I just wanted to show you the different way with the guide curve. With this kind of setup, it can be faster to then make adjustments compared to manually having to groom everything, because in here you can just move those points around and it will affect the hair look. And with the manual way, you would have to groom everything from scratch. Anyway, that's it. Hope you like this video, and see ya.